Good morning, everybody. What is up? It is the best day of the week once again. Happy Saturday. Welcome to Coast College Football Pregame Show. I am your host, Mark Say from Hurricane Helene, Uncle Shally. And to my top left, coming from a weird angle, I don't know what's going on there, is my Buckeye brother from another mother, Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
Hey, I can't complain, man. When you're on the road, you gotta just find ways to make it work. So, and
I'm
I'm
with you.
sure I'm sure you know that better than anybody. I mean, this is
I
two
say
shows now on the road.
to show the dedication. Just want everybody to know, Alex is the only one waking up at the confines of his own house today. I'm in Florida, so I mentioned the hurricane. And Cottrell is obviously you're what you're in Cleveland, I believe.
Yeah, I'm in Cleveland.
He's in Cleveland, and then Alex is still doing show prep, sticking on his.
I forgot about it. My name is I Black, and I literally forgot the I Black.
Well, speaking of eye black, we're gonna bring in Mr. West Coast himself, Mr. Stick on Eye Black,
This morning, yeah.
Alex Elmore. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. No, I'm just out of I Black right now, so I'm making what I got work. It's not even. I don't care. It's early. It's 7:10 in the morning on the West Coast. I'm coming off of an Oregon Duck bye week. It's been terrible for me for the last 2 weeks without being able to watch my boys play football. So I'm all discombobulated, but we're here. We're ready to rock and roll. I'm excited. Okay, I'm done. That'll
Justin
do it.
Justin Louder, as always, already in the chat. I promise you, I'm anything but rested right now, Justin. It was a long evening, but here we are. The show must go on, as they say. Um, but we do as always, we have a really fun, kind of a jam-packed show. We have a lot of previews today. We're going to start with Breaking the Huddle, our new segment that we debuted last week. We're going to do headlines. Alex is going to go over those for us. Recaps from last week, obviously week 5, pick 'em and Eliminator. A lot of crazy recaps from last week. Like I said, we're going to do a lot of previews this week because, like we promised everybody, we're going to try to keep up with the group of 5. And then there's two important games. Well, actually, I think one got rescheduled, right? One we were going to
Yes.
do.
Canceled completely.
Damn.
Oh, damn.
But we're gonna do another group of 5 game, and then obviously there's a couple of really really big games today. So we're gonna get this show on the road, as they say, and we're gonna start with Breaking the Huddle.
Perfect. Well, I love starting with this segment. And last week, we started out with some news about the Pac-12 getting some new teams committed to that conference. And this week, we're going to start out with the Mountain West Conference. And they were able to get a solid commitment from the 7 remaining members, saying that they're going to stay pat. And, honestly, there's a lot of financial things kind of intertwined with this. The teams that are leaving have to pay up to $18 million a piece to leave the conference, but I think is a huge reason why a lot of these smaller schools are probably going to be staying in the Mountain West Conference for the foreseeable future. What's your guys' opinion on the Mountain West Conference, the 7 remaining teams, as well as talks of them trying to get Northern Illinois involved and also talking to some other smaller schools to grow the Mountain West Conference?
So for me, I would say like the big thing is definitely going to be. I mean, you mentioned the $18 million. I think if they're going to the Pac-12, like those schools that were thinking about potentially going to the Pac-12, obviously the Pac-12 would have to cover a large amount of that. I know, the wording is that the school has to cover it, but ultimately, if the Pac-12 wants to entice those schools, they would have to be the ones to cover the majority, if not all of it. As far as the Mountain West going to get NIU and potentially Toledo, like the talks were being had, leave the MAC schools alone.
I
Like
knew this was coming.
I need the MAC to stay pat. We don't have much of the tradition anymore. NIU going over to the Mountain West, Toledo going to the Mountain West doesn't make much sense, geographically for them. I will say the one thing though that would be cool about that, all jokes aside, that NIU would be adding in an element of being like a central time team, and then getting a school from the MAC into another school from the MAC in Toledo, being on the East Coast and Eastern Standard Time there. I do think that would be able to broaden that audience because a lot of times the Mountain West games, I know they are smaller schools, but these are a lot of teams that people don't really see often outside of Boise State when they're on the national game and things like that. So I think it'd be a good exposure because then at that point you'd have like 330 3:30 kicks, or if a team is traveling to Toledo, you may have a noon kickoff game with that. So I think it would be good exposure wise for the Mountain West. But as far as these teams moving over there, I'm one of the traditionalists. I know Bill is as well. So I would like NIU and Toledo to stay in the MAC, but I like the Mountain West idea of expansion and adding those teams or replacing the teams that left to go to the Pac-12.
So I'm a traditionalist, and I'm going to agree with pretty much everything Cottrell said here. I think I said it on this show last year. This is going to continue to be like a snowball down the hill, domino effect type thing, and it was going to get to a point where it stops making sense and you're really starting to ruin things, all in the sake of money and so forth and so on. Number one, if we're being honest, let's again, the Pac-12 is a West Coast conference. That was the beauty of it. You had the Big Ten, which is the Midwest. The SEC is obviously in the Southeast. It speaks for itself. ACC is, up and down the Eastern Corridor on the coast. And then the Pac-12 was the West Coast. That's what made it cool. It was all the teams on the West against everybody else. I'm also in agreement with Cottrell with the MAC. That is a cool little conference, and I say that you look at like State of Michigan has 3 teams, State of Ohio has I think 3 or 4 teams. They're all tightly grouped. There's rivalries there. Like that is a very solid, nice little sustained conference. We can't start cherry picking this stuff, and I knew that's what it was going to get down to, because eventually the bigger people were going to have to refill from somewhere, and they're just going to start picking. I'm a little surprised some of the teams in the Mountain West kind of held their ground and decided to stay, even though I think it's the right decision. Again, the Mountain West, for not being one of the the Power 5 groups, that is a conference that has very deep ties to a lot of those schools and has a lot of history with a lot of those schools. And those schools decided to stay and not take the money. I also think the problem the Pac-12 is, in a weird way, is kind of having is they don't have like a big anchor school. And I think that is where some of these, schools are like, we don't really know what that's going to look like 5 years from now. So we're just going to hold here now and then see what, kind of what's on the horizon. I think if like Oregon and Washington hadn't gone to the Big Ten and they were like, hey, we're the only 2 left standing, they could anchor that conference. They could anchor the Pac-12. Like if it was like the Big Ten was Michigan and Ohio State, or, Alabama and Georgia in the SEC. I think if they had anchor schools like that, I think the landscape would look a lot different. I think pretty much, going Washington State and all that stuff, that's not really, I don't think it moves the needle enough for a lot of schools to really be like, you know what, do we want to leave this conference, go do all this? And we don't know if it's really going to be considered a premier Power 5 conference again anyway. So I think it's a big risk for some of the schools. And I think some of them that have had time to think about it now are saying no and staying put. And me as a traditionalist, like Rochelle said, I love it. I love it. I want to be done with all of it. Like I knew some of this was inevitable, and it was. But now I just really feel like we're making moves for the sake of making moves. And this is where, for me, I want it to stop. Like we're doing things that don't make sense. Like Cottrell said, there's no reason for Northern Illinois to be in a West Coast conference. They're in the Midwest barely, and they have no ties. They have no history of the West Coast. Like you're literally just plucking one team from the MAC, and then Toledo, who is, if you're going by football, they're one of the more consistent, better football programs than the MAC. I think that's fair to say.
For sure.
You're gonna put Toledo in a West Coast conference, and it's the other thing too. It's not just football, and that's what people need to realize too. For most of these things, it means all the schools. Toledo cannot afford to constantly be flying all their teams out West Coast to do all this stuff. Like I'm done with it. I really hope it stays pat the way it is. If they end up, cherry picking another like Mountain West team or something like that's fine. That makes sense. Leave all the Midwest schools, leave all the little schools alone, and go from there. That's my opinion.
Well, I kind of mentioned it and alluded to it earlier in the week. We were kind of discussing possible conference changes, what it would look like, who could go to the pack, things like that. And I think we kind of all agreed that a good idea we had was they should have like a Midwest to East Coast conference and then a West Coast conference, and they play one cross game, and other than that, they play in their side of the division, and then the two champions of each division play. I think that makes the most sense, especially for the smaller schools with travel and finances and things like that. I think that makes the most sense. Um, but I mean, I think the Mountain West Conference has done a nice job of doing their due diligence to keep the teams that are staying there. Air Force, UNLV, New Mexico, Nevada, San Jose State, and Wyoming, and Hawaii. Like they're doing a great job of keeping them there. Each of the schools that left, they're going to be fined up to $18 million. If not less. They said there is some negotiation tactics with it. But what they're going to do is they're going to take that lump sum that all those teams paid, and they're going to pay it out to the remaining teams. So like they have it as like 24.5% of the distribution goes to Air Force and UNLV, 11.5% goes to New Mexico, Nevada, San Jose State, and Wyoming, and Hawaii gets 5%, which makes sense, obviously, off of their profit sharing and things like that. So they're really doing a nice job of enticing these teams to stay and giving money back to those teams to kind of get them and helping them with their recruiting and staying so that they don't lose the conference altogether. Because you saw like Pac-12 conference, as soon as one team left, another team left, a third team left, because the domino effect went. So good job on the MWC to kind of really kind of take control, stop the leaks while they were happening, and kind of getting things righted right away, because it could have gotten out of hand really fast. But anything else about the Mountain West Conference, Pac-12, or any realignment issues that you guys want to discuss before we kind of go on to some QB news?
So for me,
good.
I was just going to say, I think the one interesting thing, there's no official word on it, so I know we're probably not going to hit on it, but I think the rumors going around about Clemson and Florida State trying to play nice with the ACC now and, potentially figuring that out is pretty interesting, given that they basically said, hey, we want more money, or we're trying to go to the SEC, and the SEC is like, hey, we don't want you guys, so you got to figure out a new plan. And obviously, it wouldn't make sense for them to go to the Big Ten, and they're definitely not going West Coast to go to the Pac-12. So I think it's interesting that after all this hoopla and, carrying on that Clemson and Florida State both did, it looks like they're going to probably stay in the ACC and, potentially get some more money there. But basically, as big of a program as both those schools are, they're really like the forgotten stepchild here. Like nobody wants them to join their conference because both schools have been greedy. And, it probably feels like, at least for the Big Ten and the SEC, they have enough schools that are great and they get along. So probably not worth the headache of adding those two schools. So I think it's interesting how that seems to be, trending to play out, for the ACC.
Well, what is it? You got Clemson, who refuses to adapt to today's college football, when not utilizing the transfer portal and things like that, not maximizing their program as they should. And then you got a team like Florida State, who was overlooked by the committee for the national championship possibility, and then started off the season 0-3. I mean, what is enticing about those teams to the SEC? What do they need? I mean, what have you done for me lately? There's nothing that they can offer the SEC that the SEC doesn't already have. So, I mean,
yeah. See, if this was 90s Florida State, I think SEC would be, probably bending over backwards to get them. The great Bobby Bowden era, when they were winning national championships left and right.
But even before the season started, though, like SEC still wanted nothing to do with Clemson or Florida State. They're like, hey, we don't care about 13-0. We don't care about the Dabo. We don't care about none of that. We don't want you guys still. Obviously, now it makes a ton more sense. So they're both like, hey, we gotta tighten up and figure this out, because we're going to be left without a pot to piss in.
Yeah, I remember when it first came out, I think everybody assumed it was the SEC, and they were like, we haven't even talked to them. Like, we haven't, brought it in front of our board of governors or even had discussions. Like, they were kind of like, they're doing, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I hope they don't think they're coming here, because like Trell said, they weren't really interested in taking them on. And other than geographically, like there's no natural really rivalries in there. I mean, I guess you could say Florida State, Florida, but that's one game. Like Clemson doesn't have any huge historic rivalry with anybody in the SEC.
South Carolina.
Okay, but that's a rivalry game because it's geographic. Like it's not, you know what I mean? It's not Auburn, Alabama.
Right.
or it's they were really late to the party and they wanted to try to cash in and get their big piece of the money pie somehow from somewhere else. Like you said, going to the Big Ten made less sense than it did to go to the SEC, and they just took on 4 teams. They'll end up getting more money out of this somehow with the reworked TV deal. I think they're probably going to do some kind of weighted thing, saying like based on viewership and success and blah blah blah. That's how they're going to split the revenue differently to appease them. But you got to give the ACC credit too. They were like, "Cool, if you want to get out, you take us to court, and every penny that you spend is a penny coming out of your pocket. And if we win, we're going to sue you for our lawyers' fees," which they said they made very public. So I thought that was hilarious. But I'm done with realignment. It needs to end. It's somebody needs to put a stop to it, and then just eventually let's just move on for the next 10 years and then see where we are. That's my opinion.
No, I totally respect that.
Louder, I still got the hat. It's right next to me. I just can't put it on, but it's here.
You can't put it on because it's filled with puke from partying last night.
No,
College style.
It's just gonna hurt my head too much.
All right, well, we got lots of show to go, so I won't hold off any longer. We got a few different things on the quarterback front. Obviously, a bigger one that's been in the news we'll talk about last. But a couple QBs. Quinn Ewers not likely to play today, and Cam Rising is a game-time decision. I mean, does any of that surprise you this week? I feel like the Cam Rising stuff, I feel like should have been solved after last week's game. Have you guys heard anything different on your ends?
I would say Cam is a little surprising to me because I think that injury then is worse than what they let it on to be. Originally, they just said it was a cut and they wanted it to heal, and so forth and so on. If he didn't play last week at Oklahoma State, they're back home. Who are they playing today?
Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big game, but it's not, obviously it didn't have the implications of the game last week. So I think that hand injury again is a little bit more serious than they're letting on, which they might end up getting in trouble for. Quinn Ewers not playing. I told you this was going to happen.
Right.
Played baseball my whole life. If you get an oblique injury, they do not heal in a week. It is an injury that most people who throw, obviously being a quarterback, and if you look at the major leagues, 90% of people get oblique injuries are pitchers. They do not heal quick. It's a very big muscle. It's kind of a long rehab. I told you from the get-go he's probably going to be on a month. And I believe they have a bye week next week, correct?
They do have a bye week. Yep, the next game after today is October 12th versus Oklahoma, which obviously you'd want them healthy for that one.
You want them healthy, and I think that was probably the target from the get-go. I think they're fine with Arch for, to finish the last game, play last week, play this week, bye week next week, and then hopefully Quinn's ready to go for Oklahoma. So I said that last week on the show. I think that was the goal from the get-go.
Agreed, and I think with the Quinn and Arch situation, I mean, I think that's easy. You go with Quinn. I mean, you go with Arch, and you hold off on playing Quinn until he's ready to go. Give him 2 extra weeks. You give him the bye, and then the following week you get Oklahoma, which, I mean, Oklahoma's already having their quarterback controversy as well there. Like, Jackson Arnold's already on the pine. I don't know if we're going to get to that or not. But even in that game, like, I'm not sure Arch can't take over and win that game for him as well. I mean, I think Arch is, one of the best, if not the best, backup quarterback in the entire country. I think he's proven that, and we know he's going to be a bona fide starter for that team next year. And so I think that's a completely different situation compared to Utah, where, with Cam Rising, I get it. Arizona isn't ranked anymore, and, they're 2-1 at this point, and it doesn't have the same implications as facing an Oklahoma State team. But I do think this Arizona team is game enough to beat Utah, even on the road, especially if that Utah offense struggles. I know that they took care of business last week against Oklahoma State, but just looking at the way that spread is at 9.5, I think they know Cam Rising is playing today. I know it's still game time decision, things like that, but at a point, you can't be a game time decision 3 weeks in a row and not play. Like, I feel like that's, Bill, to your point, I do think Utah can potentially get in trouble for that because it's either he's playing or he's not. Like, just to compare it to the NFL wise, you had Kyle Shanahan come out and basically be like, "Oh yeah, like we didn't know until a couple hours before the game that McCaffrey wasn't going to play, and now we're going on week 4, 5, 6, and we have no idea when he's going to return." So I think it's a very similar situation there with Cam Rising, and I do think he will ultimately play today. But if he doesn't play today, I think the NCAA definitely has some investigating to do to see what the hell's going on in Utah.
And you kind of alluded to it, and you mentioned Jackson Arnold. That's another piece of QB news that we were going to kind of bring up today, and that's Jackson Arnold. 4 games into the season, didn't have a great game against Tennessee last week. Already been benched for another. Who is it? They're starting another freshman, correct?
True freshman. They're starting a true freshman now.
A true freshman today. Clearly, life is not better without Dylan Gabriel. Experience is everything, man. You know what you're going to get with Dylan Gabriel. And you chose to go with the unproven prospect in Jackson Arnold. And look what's happened. 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, sacked 10 times, less than 50% completion against an SEC opponent. Clearly, Oklahoma is regretting making this decision and allowing Dylan Gabriel to leave. Tell me I'm wrong in this situation, Cottrell. Tell me that Oklahoma made the right decision.
Can I be honest with you, though?
Cottrell's going to tell you you're wrong. I promise you that.
Of course he is.
I just want to be honest with you. Even with Dylan Gabriel on that Oklahoma team, they're not beating Tennessee last week. So I think they would be in the same boat. Granted, has Jackson
Arnold got a quarterback.
Has he been underwhelming? Yes.
Underwhelming. He's terrible. Dude, Dylan Gabriel has an over 80% completion percentage. This dude completed 43% of his passes last week. You're telling me Dylan Gabriel is not going to have at least 70% completion against...
Don't talk to me about completion percentage, Dylan Gabriel. When you came on this show after the Idaho game and told me that the numbers were misleading because every single pass was
in that game, yes. Since then, he's gone to deep ball. We're talking about week 1. Now we're in week 5?
And you had a bye week.
Progressed.
You guys have played 3 games.
He's progressed. Whatever, man. I'm just saying, you have to admit, last year you were saying how Jackson Arnold was the save-all of Oklahoma. Now he was going to be the starter. You said last year he's going to be the starter. Dylan Gabriel is going to be out of town.
This is true.
Right. And now, looking at comparatively, do you think, without, who cares about Oregon Ducks, whatever, was that the right decision for the Oklahoma team to move on from Dylan Gabriel this year? Or should they have waited another year for Jackson Arnold to kind of mature a little bit more? As we've seen, he is not.
So I'll say this. I say it's the right decision, not because Dylan Gabriel isn't the better quarterback. I think from what we've seen so far, Dylan Gabriel is the better quarterback. However, with that said, with Gabriel being there and it being his 6th year in college football, I don't think you can give Jackson Arnold the ability to potentially even transfer. Like, Jackson Arnold could have and should have been your future. 5-star kid coming in, and he was the heir apparent there. And you saw what you got out of Dylan Gabriel. Not saying he was bad at Oklahoma, but you guys weren't even close to winning a national championship while he was there. There was never discussion about Oklahoma being serious national championship contenders while you were there. Did he make your team competitive and good? Yes, but he didn't get you guys over the hump. I don't think you can lose out on the potential of a Jackson Arnold to the portal, knowing that, hey, I got to sit on the pine another year behind this kid, and I can go to many other schools in the country and be a starting quarterback right now. I think that really says a lot for you. So I think it was still the right decision. But in today's age of college football, you can't let the 5th, 6th year guy ultimately stay and, slow your progression of your players, especially if you don't think that's going to help lead you to a national championship.
Yeah, so most of Cottrell's point is exactly how I feel about it. Brett Venables is going to say what he's going to say, publicly and all that good stuff. This was not a year that Oklahoma was going to make a run. So, again, if we're being honest, if you're bringing Jackson Arnold in to kind of be the prodigy and be the next guy, you're bringing him in this year to let him kind of take his lumps and learn and kind of learn on the job type thing. Hold on. My point is, in a weird way, you owe it to Dylan Gabriel to be like, hey, let's have a realistic discussion on what 2024 is going to look like. We're not going to compete for a national championship. I know we're moving to the SEC, and that's great. But this is realistically where we are next year because we are still another year away. If you want to stay, it's one of those things like, hey, if you want to stay, that's probably great. You could play, but we are going to play Jackson Arnold at some point to start getting him ready for 2025 because that's the year we do think we can compete. That's the year that all these receivers we brought in are all going to be sophomores and juniors. The lines are going to be better. It's going to be another year, removed. I have my defense installed. That is our goal. 2025 is our goal. At that point, it makes sense for Dylan Gabriel to be like, I have 1 year left. I want to go somewhere where I have a legit chance to make a run at the national championship. And I think that's exactly what you saw happen. That's why out of nowhere, he was like, I'm in the portal. I'm going to go to Oregon, which makes sense. Jackson Arnold was going to be their guy regardless. So when they got him, I don't think they thought it was going to be this bad per se. And to your point, he's been bad. But it's still going to all fall under the category of being acceptable because they want him to get all this out of his system now. Like I also think they're throwing the backup under the bus here, and I'll get to that in a second. I think them benching Jackson Arnold today was way more strategic than people are looking at. But I think Jackson Arnold will probably start next week again. They're going to take their lumps down the road going through the SEC schedule. And then it's going to be what it's going to be. And then next year, I think Oklahoma is going to be a very good football team. If you haven't looked at the injury report, Oklahoma's top 5 wide receivers are not playing today. I don't think with Jackson Arnold's confidence being what it's being right now and as poorly as he has played, I don't think they want to throw him out there in a game with the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th wide receivers on that depth chart starting and him throwing another stinker of a game on the board. I honestly believe that's why he's not playing today. I believe it's partly poor play, but I also believe it was them looking ahead to this week, knowing what that was going to be, especially when everybody got ruled out, and they were like, "Let's just not even do this." And they're gonna make this other kid the sacrificial lamb, which is whatever. But taking all the emotional Dylan Gabriel things out of it, because I know you two love to debate Dylan Gabriel. It was the right move for everybody involved, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Dylan Gabriel. And again, if we're just being honest, like that's important. Like them being honest with him is a big part of this, and as they should be, because some schools wouldn't be. Let's just be honest. Like we're going to get into another one kind of here in a second. And he made the right decision for him and went to Oregon, and he's going to play his last year, hopefully his last year, and and have a chance to win a national championship. If he would have stayed in Oklahoma, he would have been like, oh, like he's the good guy, like he's going to stay here and gut it out. But he would have ended. He would have ended his season 7-6 if he's lucky.
Okay, well I can't argue with that. Now, here's my question though. You said that they have Jackson Arnold in there. They want him to take his lumps. Wouldn't you want to see what your young QB is made of in a situation like today where you're missing your top 4 wide receivers coming off of the game where you played like dog crap? Like, isn't this where you want to see your perseverance of your team's leader and seeing what he could bring to the table?
If he was a true freshman that was playing well, then I start him in, like you said, kind of like a gut check type game. You don't ever want to. Again, he's an 18, 19-year-old kid. We lose track of that because we get an NFL mindset sometimes. I don't think with his confidence being shaky as it is, him kind of double guessing all his decisions, I don't think you throw him out there today because I think today's game is ugly. And then if you throw another one, you don't want to bury the kid. You don't want to bury the kid 5 games into his freshman season. That's not good for anybody.
And then I think the other part of it too is that, again, with Oklahoma knowing that the state that they're in this season, I truly believe their national championship this year is trying to beat Texas. So you want him, especially knowing that game is on the horizon, you want him to go into that game with some confidence. And by essentially benching him now, and for a lot of kids, you want this to be that, hey, I need to better myself. I need to get over the hump and get a quarterback. I haven't been good enough, and this is my time to work on myself and get myself ready and build that confidence up. So to Shally's point, I think what Oklahoma is doing is strategic, but I also think this is really just gearing that team up to play Texas. I don't think all these receivers be missing today's game if this was Texas, but because it's Auburn, and they probably think they can even still get away with it, albeit maybe ugly, maybe in an uglier football game. I think that Oklahoma's mindset is, hey, we got to beat Texas this year, and Jackson Arnold is our quarterback of the future. We have really no plans to fully replace him. However, by also giving this true freshman Michael Hawkins Jr. a shot, if Michael Hawkins Jr. goes up there and he has a great game against Auburn, things like that, then they got some decisions to make, and they're kind of in a weird position because, if Jackson ultimately decides, hey, I see the writing on the wall, I'm not going to be the starter down the line, he can go and say, hey, I'm hitting the portal and I won't be here anymore. But then for Oklahoma, that means that, hey, we found our quarterback of the future and we're going to have this guy for at least 2 more years, probably 3 at this point. So Oklahoma's in a weird spot, but I also think, like Bill said, this is a very strategic move, and it'll ultimately play itself out here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, and you did say it, though, Michael Hawkins Jr., he came in last week, halfway through the game, had actually a pretty decent game against that Tennessee defense, 11 for 18 for 132 yards. So who knows? Maybe we might be looking at a QB competition if this kid does play well today. But they do have a bye next week before the Texas game, so they got a couple weeks to right the ship before that big game. So a lot of news to talk about, in the next 2 weeks.
I will say, too, real quick before we move on, I love that whoever has been making these schedules, when the big games happen, they have been very fair in giving their bye weeks at the same time as the other opponent. Like, I love that we've seen so much of that so far. I think when we face Oregon, I think that's your guys' second bye. Is that week?
No, we don't have a bye till November. After,
okay. But I know we don't either though. But I know the game that we're talking about later today, Alabama and Georgia, both those teams are coming off of a bye. In this situation, Texas and Oklahoma, both those schools are going to be coming off of a bye. I think the schedule makers did a great job in lining that up. So there's really no excuses going into these big time matchups.
Actually, it's kind of wild. Our last bye is the week before the last week of the season. So we play Wisconsin November 16th and then Washington November 30th. So we have a week off before the last week of the season, which is kind of weird. But no,
off in a row.
Yeah, right. But no, I do like what you said, Cottrell. That's a great point. That, like I said, both teams are having equal times to prepare for these really big games, which isn't causing an imbalance or more injury problems for the foreseeable future. But there's one more piece of QB news we need to talk about, and this is probably the most important news of the week. And that's Matt Sluka, QB I've never heard of until this year. He's quarterback for UNLV, led them off to a 3-0 start, and honestly, one of the hottest teams in the country. In a lot of people's conversations for making the college football playoff. He has willingly redshirted himself for this season. A little bit of background: he played at Holy Cross. Now he's a fifth-year senior at UNLV, and he was promised $100,000 in cash from an assistant coach, which obviously this was not in writing. UNLV QB started off hot for the season. UNLV started off three wins, no losses. His parents then hired him an agent. His agent then was basically essentially looking for where this money was, which again, we don't know if it was offered or not. And then he cleared red shirt. That's kind of where we're at right now. Nothing's really been officially said, yes, he was offered money, or no, he wasn't. Both sides are coming at it. There's a bunch of other stuff going on with this, but Bill Cottrell, what's your thinkings when you first saw this kind of pop up in the headlines?
For me, first off, this is why I hate NIL, and I hate the fact that NCAA is not involved. They're just MIA as normal. This is not what NIL was supposed to be. This is literally almost a pay for play situation, which is illegal. So I'm kind of on the side of UNLV here in that I believe their story more. I don't know exactly which way this happened. And I think Saluka overplayed his hand here in that I think if he was going to go in and demand more money, it would have been after beating Fresno State this week, because they have probably the inside track to the group of 5, automatic berth outside of probably Boise State. UNLV has said numerous times that all NIL, agreements that they had with him have been fulfilled. I would have to say for them to come out and say that publicly, that they can prove that. Matt Saluka's camp has not offered anything saying that he wasn't paid other than them just saying it. And from everything I've read, the way it went down, he went into the coach's office and said he wanted more money. And if you do that in the middle of the season, that becomes like, since you've already started playing, that was UNLV's hang up with it. It becomes, that's like, hey, I want more money to play the rest of the season. It's literally the definition of pay for play. And they were like, if we do it, it's a violation. I think this kid was trying to cash in on an opportunity. I understand that. I think he went about it completely the wrong way. My bigger issue is quitting on your team in 3 games into a season, which was starting to look like maybe you had kind of the magical. I mean, let's be honest. UNLV is not a sports powerhouse in anything. They were back in the 90s for basketball, but even back then, it's because they were paying all those players to be there, which got them in a whole load of trouble after they all left. My bigger issue is the character. For him to be able to walk away being the starting quarterback and leader of that team and say, you know what, I'm not getting $100,000. I'm happy we're 3-0, and if we would have beat Fresno later today, we've been 4-0, and maybe me, you, and all the guys get this magical opportunity just to go play in the college football playoff, and just quit on your team and roll out off of campus. That is my bigger issue with this. That is unforgivable for me, as being, as a teammate or anything like that. If I'm looking at this kid to bring him in, I'm not bringing him in. I'm not. You obviously know what kind of situation you're getting into with him and his parents. Money obviously motivates the kid, which again is there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to do it the right way. And you still, no matter what you do, if you're the quarterback of a team, you're almost 90% of the time the natural leader of the team, the loudest voice, the guy that everybody looks to for guidance, and you just walk out of school and quit. That is literally unforgivable for me.
For sure. And I think just to add on to that, I mean, I think at first I was more so on the side of, I wouldn't be surprised if UNLV tried to lure this kid in and lied to him and say, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars to come and be our starting quarterback. But then, more news came out, and it's been reported that the UNLV players are not on his side there. And I think even if it was a situation of, the school lied to him and said he was going to make more money, I think even then you would have some players that are like, yeah, we're pissed that our starting quarterback decided to quit on us in the middle of the season. However, we also understand they haven't filled their end of the bargain here in bringing him in. So, I think you would have had more of that story, but that hasn't really been the case here. And I think as well, when you're in Las Vegas, I mean, there's plenty of casinos, plenty of businesses. If ultimately NIL is more so what you coveted it, you could have done that on your own. You don't have to rely on UNLV to give you that money. It's like, hey, I'm the starting quarterback at UNLV. We're off to one of the best starts in our school's history here. You could go to MGM. You could go to, all these other places and say, hey, like BetMGM. You can go to all these places and say, look, I would love to be in a commercial for you guys. Give me like $50,000. I'll post on my Instagram. I'll post on, my Twitter, whatever the case may be. You can go and get these NIL deals on your own. You don't have to rely on the school to take care of that for you. And it's not a huge commitment. I've recently been watching the Money Game about LSU and their whole NIL deal on Amazon Prime, and just seeing how a lot of those star athletes go about it and really are advocates for themselves. So the money is out there, especially in a city like Las Vegas. You even had it come out afterwards that an owner of a casino said, hey, we were more than willing to give the kid $100,000. And ultimately UNLV turned it down. And so what that said to me was UNLV realized, like, hey, we're not the assholes in this situation. If it was on us and we said we're going to pay the kid and we didn't, and the casino's coming in to cover our asses with this one, then I feel like they would have just took the deal and said, hey, we're going to continue with this magical season. But it looks like now that it's more so the principle. You're not going to come in here. I don't care who you are, the starting quarterback. I don't care where we're at this point in our season. You're not going to come in here and strong arm us into doing something that's not agreed upon during the season. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I gave this as my "you got to be kidding me" on Wednesday because I was disappointed in both sides. But now, as I'm looking at it more, I think UNLV is kind of taking the, in a sense, honorable approach, because there's a lot of schools that would have just said, "Hey, casino wants to give the kid $100,000. Although we don't agree with it, we want this season to continue being special, so we're going to give it to him for now and just deal with everything else afterwards." UNLV said, "No, we're not doing that. We're going to let the kid redshirt, and whatever happens, happens. We don't care that Fresno State's coming in this week. We don't care that we got Boise State later on this year. We're just going to let the cards fall as they may, and really just go from there."
See, I feel the absolute opposite of you, Patrell, in the sense of the second he declared redshirt because of $100,000, no matter who offered to pay him $100,000, UNLV has to say no. Because the second they say yes, we're already automatically going to assume that what the kid was saying is true. I mean, correct? I mean, when they turned down that $100,000 casino offer, what was the first thought in all of our heads? Oh shit, the university's telling the truth. Like, they're standing on morals. If they were to accept that money, we would have instantly thought the opposite. At least I know I would have. I would have been like, those dudes were lying, and this kid's got a case.
I hear you on that, but I will say, though, if the school would have accepted that offer, I don't think we know about any of this stuff until after the season. Like, after everything's over, we're not talking about, the kid got $100,000, because that would have all got handled behind closed doors. We may not have ever known about it, honestly, because the kid would have ultimately got what he wanted. So he wouldn't have wanted to come out and make this big fuss about what was going on. So I think that these conversations were had before we knew about it. And I think he went to the office and said, "Hey, I need this money or I'm redshirt." UNLV said, "No." Word got out to their boosters and things like that. "Hey, this kid's thinking about redshirt and blah, blah, blah." And UNLV was like, "We don't care where the money's coming from. We're not giving it to this kid." So I think that's where, I'm at with it. I think if they wanted to give him the money, they could have, and it would have been all quiet, and we would have never heard about it, or at least not until the season was over.
Bill, any final opinions on this topic?
No, I just think I hope he understands what he did, and I don't think this is going to have the desired outcome effect that he thinks it's going to. Again, I think this is going. I think he's going to need to find a place to play next year. I think the sledding is going to be a little tougher than he thinks it's going to be. I think there's going to be a lot of coaches that are going to be very hesitant to, Again, this isn't a kid that was lighting the world on fire. He had 300 yards passing in 3 games. So, I said at the beginning, I think he overplayed his hand horribly. But I think a lot of coaches are not going to deal with it. I mean, I think that's a tough sell to their kids. I really do. I'm sure he will find a home. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of coaches will look at this, and be like, "How am I going to turn around to a locker room full of guys and be like, here's going to be your starting quarterback, next year. Oh yeah. Oh, you guys know who he is. Yeah, he's the guy who walked out on all his other teammates in UNLV." Not a speech I would like to make. So
I'm putting this on record now. I told you guys in the group chat, I think Colorado is going to be the team that ultimately tried to make a play for him. Not saying he ultimately lands there, but I think Colorado is going to be the name that you hear floating around with this kid forever, because ultimately we know Shedeur is going to the league. They don't have a backup plan in place right now as it stands. And I think this is a perfect guy you could bring in on a 1-year deal where I think Coach Prime is going to say, "Hey, we're focused on winning. All that money stuff, we'll get that figured out. We got the NIL. We're not worried about that." And I think you'll have that conversation with the parents and all that stuff. And then the conversation with the locker room, I mean, they have no choice but to follow what Prime says. So I think that's one school that can really just get away with making that move and ultimately filling a need as well.
I mean, at the end of the day, nothing would surprise me anymore. But I'm just being brutally honest. I don't think he's good enough to play in Colorado. So I got to feel like Prime can come up with he can come up with a better solution than bringing this kid in.
That's fair.
Well, there is part of his game that we haven't really talked about, and that he is very heavy on the run side. Right, he's got over 2,400 rushing yards in the last 2 years at Holy Cross, 253 yards this year. So kind of on that similar pace, over 100 rushing yards last week. So he has a larger portion of his game, kind of like almost like a Jalen Milroe last year, where like he was looking to run first, where like he's like a 5th-year guy. You think by now he would have developed the arm game first instead of the rushing attack. But honestly, I don't know if I want to see any colleges pick him up, because if another college next year takes a chance on him, there's a very dangerous precedent set to every other player in the country that, hey, you're not happy with your monetary situation, redshirt and someone else will pick you up. So like college as a whole needs to kind of bind together, and nobody needs to pick this kid up, or else they're going to have a lot of issues over the next 5-10 years with this happening more and more often. Then that's what I'm thinking.
You say that, but I will say, it's one thing if like Colorado goes out and gets him. If this kid ends up at like another small school like a Coastal Carolina or Appalachian State, like a school like that, then I mean it's like, hey, do it at your own risk. Like if you want to go out after playing 3 games and say, hey, I want to hit the portal because I'm not getting the money that I feel like I deserve, then go ahead. Even if it does work out for this one specific like instance. That is how kids end up going to JUCO. Like you ultimately deciding, hey, I wanna like quit on the season and start getting more money here. He's in a situation where he's a 5th year. So wherever he goes, there is no more red shirt, and he has to play wherever he goes. So I think this situation will be different than like let's say, for example, a kid like Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams at Alabama. If they were like, hey, we want more money, or we're going to just redshirt and hit the portal. I think that's a completely different situation than this kid being a 5th-year senior and really not having another opportunity. Because I promise you, a lot of coaches will say, hey, go hit JUCO. We'll see you in 2 years. Like no problem. Like won't even look at the kid based on that. So I think situations do matter. He's going to get another shot at the D1 level, but a lot of kids, this can't set that precedent. I don't think this will set that precedent, because unless you're the guy, you're not going to get that next opportunity right away.
Bill, anything you want to add regarding the topic before we kind of jump into, I would say UNLV has a big game today against Fresno State. Anything you want to throw in before we start previewing that?
I mean, that just factors into kind of like I said, overplaying his hand. If they win today, that game with Boise State at the end of the year probably determines which one of those 2 teams goes and has the best chance for the group of 5 automatic berth. You beat Fresno State at home today. That's when you walk in and go, hey, we're 4-0, we're legit. I need to, and again, say it differently, but like I want to talk about getting more NIL money possibly, or like Cottrell was saying, like, somebody's got a connection with one of the casinos, I could go, share stuff and do a commercial or something like that. That's when you do it. You don't do it the week before the game and then walk out and quit. Like 2 dramatically different situations. I don't think the kid could have handled it like any worse if he tried. I really don't.
I think the kid though tried to. I think Max Luca ultimately realized, like, hey, if I lose this week to Fresno State, this opportunity is not going to be here the same way that it was when we were 3-0. So I get it.
But what's that say though? Like what do we always love though? We love the guys that bet on themselves. Go out, get it done, get the W for your guys, and that's, I'll tell you what else it does. When you go do it after you beat Fresno State, and then everybody in that locker room knows, listen, we just got to hold serve till we play Boise, and then we're all in, and whatever happens, happens. You probably end up having more guys on your side in the locker room at that point too, if you go out and ball out against Fresno today and win the game. Like then it's like, oh, come on, like he was asking for like 50 more grand, like just wanted to do a commercial or something. We couldn't make that happen. You probably have more guys on your side being like, yo, like can we make this happen? Like he's our quarterback. Like we're 4-0. Like he can't leave. Like we got to figure this out. He then starts getting that support from within. Now it's like, I'm just gonna take my ball and go home. Like that. Like it's shit. It's shit. It's terrible.
Agreed. I'm just saying. I think he didn't want to run the risk of losing today, and it just being like, hey, That $100,000 that we're asking for, we're probably looking at like 20.
We'll put that on black, turn that into 40 at the casino.
I don't think he's actually he's 50 or so. Yeah, he's old enough to.
He's definitely old enough now. All right, wait, but just like we kind of alluded to, though, UNLV, big game against Fresno State. Want to jump into previews?
Right before we do that, we've already talked about really two of the big games that like we had from last week. I know we still got to recap some stuff there. Let's go ahead and throw that up there. The only one, Utah, Oklahoma State, we've kind of already touched on. We touched on Tennessee and Oklahoma already. Michigan and USC is the one that we haven't yet, and I just want to make sure like we hit on that first real quick before we ultimately go into previews. I know we got a lot of them, and I feel like this can get lost in the fold there. So, Bill, I'm sure you got a ton to say about that Michigan win from last week against USC.
I mean, I'll say this. I mean, all three of these were good football games. I think Tennessee 25-15 is a tad misleading. I mean, they were pretty much in the driver's seat for that game the entire time. Oklahoma State, Utah was a very good football game. Utah jumped out, and then Oklahoma State just slowly started chipping away. Made a switch at quarterback. Kid kind of jumpstart the team. And they inched their way back into it, and kind of had a shot in the fourth quarter. Kind of a similar tale to the USC-Michigan game. It was a very good football game. Michigan came out in the first half and dominated. Not exactly like last year, but it was the closest thing they've looked to this year so far. Dominate, physical, took it to USC, up 14-0. Will Johnson, ended up with another pick six. The kid is just incredible. And USC made some adjustments. They were like, all right, they're clearly not going to throw the ball. Their defensive coordinator made a couple really important adjustments, started crashing his ends on every play. Got a couple 3-and-outs. And the offense started to find the rhythm. Lincoln Riley switched some stuff up, started throwing underneath a lot, made Michigan come out of what they were in. Very strategic, like back and forth kind of chess match between like Wink Martindale and Sherrone Moore, and then Lincoln Riley and their defensive coordinator. Really fun game to watch. And then with about a minute to go, Cleo Mullings rips off a 70-yard run to get them down within the 20. And they punched in on 4th and goal from the 1 with like 30 seconds to go. For all the hype around this game, being the first obviously Big Ten matchup between USC and Michigan, USC's first kind of really, high profile Big Ten game. I thought the game delivered across the board. I thought they had like 6.1, 6.4, something like that million viewers. CBS's highest rated watch game in the last 4 or 5 years, which is kind of crazy when you consider that they used to broadcast all the SEC games. So you're talking about this game, drew more viewers than, Auburn or some Alabama and Georgia games, just to put that in perspective for you. So the Big Ten is alive and well and drawing very well based upon those numbers. Very happy we came out with the W. When they went up 24, 24-20, I thought that was probably going to be the end of the game. But they persevered. Like I said, that was the gut check moment. I fully expect us to move on and beat Minnesota today. And we're sitting here 4-1. Not perfect. I would like the Texas game back, but that being said, 4-1 with Oregon and Ohio State left. I think if they can somehow beat Oregon, I think they're definitely in. Even if they go 9-3, I think they still have a shot. So, coming off a national championship run and losing everything we lost and still having a chance to possibly get in, I'm pretty happy where Michigan's sitting right now. But great win for us. I think USC again showed that they're different than they were last year. I still think you saw certain times of that game, Michigan was just more physical and took it to them, but they responded. Whereas in the last couple of years past, they just kind of rolled over. different DC there made some adjustments, which really helped those kids, like I said, but much improved. I thought it was a great football game.
Khalil Mullins, man. I mean, he's kind of feels like he's came out of nowhere. I mean, 53 carries, 8.1 yards per carry on 53 carries. I mean, that's nothing to bat your eyelashes at. Even last year, only had 36 carries, averaging 6.2 yards. I mean, are we going to see this kid as a heavy focal point in this offense with Donovan Edwards this year, or was it more of just like a one game type?
No, I mean they've pretty much split carries so far, and that's a lot of that's because Donovan really isn't going to go, and he actually got going a little bit in the USC game. Had a big 40-yard run for a touchdown. But Khalil Mullins was 3 on the depth chart last year. Obviously, again, if you're not a Michigan fan, you're probably that doesn't really matter to you. But he got decent carries behind both Donovan and Corum last year. I mean, he was the next guy in off the bench. They used it for shorter yardage stuff last year. He's a converted linebacker actually, so he's a little bit of a bigger kid. I mean, you saw that on the run that kind of set up the game, the game-winning touchdown at the end. Had one kid wrapped on him, spun out of that, broke out of another arm tackle, and took off. He's a strong kid. But everybody knew they were going to be 1-2 this year. Like I said, I think the more surprising thing is that he's getting off a little bit more than Donovan is. But Donovan looks like he's starting to kind of, figure out the patience and kind of get his vision back to where it needs to be. Apparently coaches were saying he was trying to rush everything, just kind of like burst through the holes and hit the home run every time. You saw the patience against USC, letting stuff develop in front of him. And then again, he ripped off that. He bounced back to the backside on the 41-yard touchdown run. I would still expect Donovan to out carry him the rest of the year, but it'll be close.
I think Michigan has realized that, hey, we're going to have our most success on offense when we have the two-headed attack at running back. And you keep both those guys fresh there. You get Khalil's carries, you give Donovan his carries, and, you really just roll from there. This is a game where Alex Orji threw for less than 50 yards in it, and they found a way to win the football game. I think moving forward, USC made a great adjustment at halftime. And I think that's the way the team should play Michigan all game long. You want to make Alex Orji, if that's going to be their continued quarterback, you want to try to make him beat you with his arm because he's proven that he's not going to do it. Even in that game, it took that long run ultimately to move the ball down the field. Bill was saying once it was 24-20, he lost faith. That's because he knew his quarterback wasn't going to throw the ball down the field. And so I think what Michigan's done was very smart, very strategic. I definitely thought coming into this season it was going to be heavy Donovan Edwards just because I thought the kid was special. I thought he's going to be a true bell cow running back for them. But he's been off to a slow start, and Michigan's done a great job of picking up the slack with their backup running back there. So I think the defense has been as good as advertised. It definitely helps your offense a ton. When Will Johnson gets you a touchdown every other game, that's definitely going to go a long way for you. Teams got to stop. If you see Will backpedaling and you got an idea of throwing something to the flat, don't do it. He's going to take it away every time. I don't know why you haven't learned that yet. He's the best corner in the country. Don't love giving Michigan credit, but Will Johnson is one of those undeniable players. He is the best corner in the country, and there's no doubt about that. And you guys know how much I love Travis Hunter. So, but with that said, though, USC, man, they have a defensive identity now. I know they were struggling to stop in the run. It's tough to stop Michigan's run game, no matter what kind of defense you have. It's tough to stop Michigan running the football. But with USC having a defensive identity, and Miller Moss didn't have a great game here by any means as well. I think this USC team is one that could potentially be one that shocks a lot of people and how much contention they're truly in making the college football playoff at the end of the season. I think this is a testament to them. And granted, I don't think Michigan is like a world beater or one of the best teams in the country at this point, but I just think the way that USC looked and the way that they can play on offense and get the big play, I think this is a team that, just looking at the rest of their schedule, they got a matchup with Penn State. They got a matchup with Notre Dame. I think if you win one of those two matchups and you're ending the season at 10-2, think you're going to give yourself a good shot to make the college football playoff.
I mean, I look at it this way. I've been more iffy on that Penn State trip to USC. Cottrell was very, I don't want to say adamant, but felt confident in his pick that Penn State was going to go out there and win.
Don't feel the same anymore.
That is going to be a tough trip for James Franklin and the boys. I agree with you. I think if they win that, and there's no doubt in my mind they can beat Notre Dame and that offense that they're running. They win both of those. They just have to pray Michigan loses 3 games because they both finished with the same record.
I mean, at that point, they'd be 11-1. I mean, those are the only 2 games that I'd see them potentially losing.
Yeah, you just got to hope they don't throw in a stinker somewhere.
True, but I mean, if they're 11-1, Michigan.
If they're 11-1, they're in.
At absolute worst, 9-3, even with that head-to-head. I mean, 11-1 is gonna supersede that.
I was just saying if they finish with the same record. But yeah, if they're 11-1, they're in. I mean, that's a no-brainer. If they're 11-1 and they're only lost on the road to Michigan, yeah, they're in. That's not going to be a debate.
Right.
Anything else you guys want to add before we go on to the previews? I know we got a ton of them. Oops.
We got a ton of them.
Do we want to talk about the wild-ass Miami-Virginia Tech game last night real quick?
We can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a crazy game. 2 cousins facing off at quarterback. A lot of talk before the game. A lot of heated discussions. Miami down 10. What was it? 12 minutes to go. Cam Ward did what he needed to do to come back and win that game, 38-34. I mean, that was a great game to watch for a Friday night.
And I can't believe the debacle that happened at the end. Like, I don't know how the refs ultimately made that call being a touchdown at first, and then having to go back and change it. Like, to me, it didn't even seem like it was close to being a touchdown. I get it. You know, bodies were laying on top of each other, but you got 2 refs that are looking right at it. I mean, they're 5 yards away from it. I don't know what took so long for them to figure out that wasn't a touchdown in that situation. Like, that could have been a catastrophic end to the football game.
Agreed. I think they wanted to do their due diligence and kind of make sure they did it right. I think you're also starting to see, I mean, they've talked about it, you know, I know the NFL refereeing is completely different, but they even talk about it in regards to what those guys are told now. Like, if you're not sure if it's a fumble, if you're not definitive one way or the other, if it's a fumble or if it's an interception, they're calling it as a fumble or an interception and letting the play out. And then obviously they go look at it, and if they have to bring it back, they bring it back. But I find it weird that I think you're seeing it in college now too. These refs are erring on the side of caution. Be like, you know what? We're going to have to play out. If we have to take it off the board, we do. But we'll at least get a chance to go look at it and make the right call. But we're not going to stop the play. Like, we're going to call it. It's almost like they're calling it in a positive way. And then if they have to go back and change it to the negative and, like you said, overturn it and bring it off, they'd rather do it that way. And that seems to kind of be the push of the way everything's going with replay now. But to Cottrell's point, I mean, we've seen crazier things where you look at things and you're watching it at home and you're like, oh, yeah, like that dude's definitely out of bounds. Like, that's not a touchdown. And then, you know, it turns out to be some guy in some room in New York was like, well, you know what? I'm not 100% sure. So now the play stands. And that's where I think that the tricky part is, because especially in college, depending on how they call it in the field, matters a lot with replay. So, yeah, catastrophic is the right word. That could have been, you know, does it ruin Miami's season? No.
Potentially.
Potentially.
I mean, if they lose another game down the road and it's like, oh, you guys got 2 losses and you lost to Virginia Tech at home, and I'm comparing it to a USC team that lost to Michigan on the road and then lost the tight game in Notre Dame. So you guys are both 10-2. And, like, I mean, I think that could have been something that potentially kept Miami out of the playoff. I mean, granted, if they hold serve, then, of course, they get in. But if Miami doesn't win the ACC and you're looking at a home loss to Virginia Tech, who we don't know how their season's going to end, then I think you're going to have a lot of discussions about comparing resumes and things like that, especially knowing that the ACC doesn't have any bias towards it. If you're looking at Michigan, if Michigan's 10-2, USC is 10-2, Oregon would be 10-2. Tennessee, if we're going to the SEC, we're looking at Ole Miss, Texas, Bama, Georgia. Like, there's so many schools that could potentially be like 10-2 and in that same ballpark. A loss to Virginia Tech could have been detrimental to Miami's chances of making the college football playoff.
Well, you know what the good thing is? They got it right. So thank God. Listen, I told you guys about Virginia Tech, though. I will say this, though. I thought Virginia Tech was going to, be kind of in the mix for that third or fourth spot, maybe pull off an upset here or there. I did not have Tech going into Miami and possibly beating Miami. That was a great football game, They gave Miami everything they wanted and then some. Miami survives by the skin of their teeth, survive in advance. They still got the 0 next to their name. So, they get to move on next week. Just another, again, I just wanted to touch on it because it was such a great game and a wild ending. If you haven't watched it, just go watch the last 2 minutes of the game. The first 58 minutes were great. The last 2 minutes were wild. Just watch the last 2 minutes of the game, and you can thank us later. But let's get into previews because we gotta get rolling here.
Jesus.
This is terrible. Oh. Well, shoot.
All right. We talked about this game already a little bit, so we're going to start off with it. We were going to talk about Liberty Appalachian State. That got canceled, obviously. I'm assuming that's all weather related.
Yes.
Okay. So I know North Carolina got hit really hard. We were down here when it started, but we were more southwest of it. We didn't really, or southeast of it. Sorry, we didn't really get hit by it. But I know parts of Florida are just like gone. And then it's moved up and moved north. And I know a lot of parts of Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina. I know a lot of those states got hammered. So, if you are in those states and you watch us, hoping all is well, and hope you guys got through with not too much damage or anything like that on a serious note. But that is the reason Appalachian State Liberty. So they're not even going to replay it.
Nope, they said it's canceled. They're not. I imagine that there's nowhere in the schedule where it would feasibly make sense. And for App State, them having a downer year, like a more down at least to start the year than anticipated, for Liberty, it's probably not even worth the hassle to reschedule it.
True.
Yeah, but that one less game could affect Liberty's. Would you think that one less game looks a little different to voters when it comes down to it?
I think last year with Liberty going undefeated and making it to the a New Year's Six bowl game, if they go undefeated again this year, I don't think App State would have even 12-0 App State. 12-0 Liberty. I don't think moves the needle any further than 11-0 Liberty, especially against App State in a down year.
But we already have Appalachian State knocking out a team last year, so arguably their toughest game on their schedule gets canceled and not rescheduled.
Yeah, but we also saw App State look absolutely horrendous at points this year.
True.
So I don't know. I don't think that game would have been one way or another something that moved the needle. I know App State is perennial of being a team to provide upsets and things like that. But if we look at App State and they go 6-6 this year, or 6-5 this year, or something along the lines of that, we're not going to say, hey, that's the reason why Liberty got left out of the CFP. So I think it's smart on Liberty's part not to try and reschedule it, because that game does good one way or another.
All right. I don't disagree. I think it's probably not worth the hassle for Liberty. App State is a little bit down with it not being common. It's a lot. It's a lot. It ends up being a lot of moving parts. I don't think it moves the needle negatively for Liberty, if I'm being honest. But we're gonna start with Group of 5 anyway. And we're gonna start with the game that we kind of talked about already with the quarterback situation. Fresno State going into UNLV. Fresno State's 3-1. UNLV's 3-0. Fresno State's only loss is at Michigan. This is a big game because, like I said, the winner of this game, if they hold serve until they play Boise, game very well likely could be for the the group of 5 college football playoff berth.
Fresno State doesn't even play Boise State in the regular season.
I thought they did.
They do not. I'm looking at it right now.
UNLV does. UNLV does.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is a bigger game for Fresno than I thought then.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm just throwing this out there because we're talking about the group of 5 teams now. Stop sleeping on the damn Dukes. James Madison is still undefeated, all right? And they just went to North Carolina and put it on them. So stop sleeping on James Madison. They're also going to be a name that needs to be discussed.
I get it, but they're not talked about today.
I'm just saying, we talked about Liberty, Fresno State, UNLV, all these teams in the driver's seat. The Dukes got something to say about that. That's all I'm saying.
I think their strength of schedule is going to hurt them. But that being said, they are in the conversation. You're 100% correct. But let's go out to Las Vegas. Let's talk about this one. Fresno State, again, a very veteran-laden team. I think they returned 17 or 18 of their starters from last year. Went into Michigan, hung with Michigan for 3 quarters. UNLV, 3-0, kind of the surprise team in the conference. But they're going to play today without their starting quarterback, who took his ball and went home. I am shocked at the spread. I talked about this game on Wednesday on Wire to Wire, and I told if you wanted Fresno State to bet it now, because by the time of kickoff, it'll probably be minus money and minus, probably be giving points, on the spread. This is actually moved to minus 2.5 for UNLV. That is surprising to me. That worries me because I feel like, this team literally plays in Vegas. I feel like they know something that none of the rest of us know. That being said, though, I don't care what program you're in. Going from a starting quarterback, like Alex said, who's not been great through the air, but he's also running the ball, has that complete control of the offense. And like Cottrell said, has his team off to the best start in forever in that school. If you lose that kid, you lost your second string running back who also transferred out, is going to redshirt and transfer out. I think all the media coverage and everything, the whirlwind around that program this week, I know some of those kids have been distracted. I like Fresno State's, kind of senior leadership. I think Fresno State goes into UNLV and gets it done today.
So I'm picking this game, so I'm not going to be too descriptive on it. But I will say, I have been very high on one of these teams, especially my college football preview prediction. So if you've been following us all season, you kind of already know where I'm going with this. But no, this is going to be a fantastic game. I think that obviously it is, with how much is riding on both these teams' shoulders for the rest of the season. There's something to be said, and I've said this a few times, but there's something to be said about a team with their back up against the wall. Losing their second leading running back, their starting quarterback and leading rusher on the team. They're leading these 2 big pieces of their offense. There's something to say about a team with their back up against the wall and they come out swinging. So I think this game is going to be very close. I think that the 2.5 points is very accurate as what the line should be, but I'm not going to say how I feel about it until the end of the show.
Well, we know. I know where you're going, Alex, at least. But for me, look, I know Max Luke is going to be a huge loss. Fresno State's a good football team. I don't think any of that matters today. I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. You're going to see a lot of defense. UNLV is only allowing 13 points per game this season. So as good as the offense has been with that starting quarterback, the strength of this team has been their defense. At home, like you said, Alex, this is when teams come together. I love those matchups when coaches get fired. Like that first game after a coach gets fired, or the first game after you bench a starting quarterback. Hell, you saw in NFL, Andy Dalton, it sparked life into that Carolina Panthers team, and the offense looked great. You saw it last year. Antonio Pierce, when he was the head coach of the Raiders, like after they fired McDaniels, it sparked life into that team. I think the first game at home without that quarterback, especially all these players who don't side with that quarterback, I think those guys are going to stick together, and they're going to find a way to win this football game. I think it's going to be low scoring. I see this being a 17-13 kind of affair, but I like UNLV coming out on top in this one. I know I'm probably in the minority with it, but I like UNLV to win this football game, and it's going to be led by their defense.
Well, yeah,
All
I'm
right.
fixing my later, so I won't say nothing. But dang, that's a lot of
All right.
blasphemous talk.
We will go next to Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Kansas State minus 4.5. Oklahoma State coming off that loss to Utah at home. Alan Bowman will be back under center. Honestly, this is a big game for both teams.
It's a tombstone game.
It
Who wants
really,
to fall off the mountain and go to Tombstone?
it is a tombstone game, and it's also the loser of this is now, needs a lot of help, probably to get back to the Big 12 championship game, possibly. So, I think it's a very even game. I really do. I think there's strengths and weaknesses on both teams. Obviously, you factor in home field advantage. Manhattan, Kansas can get a little rowdy there.
A little rowdy, just a little bit.
A little rowdy. You got Avery Johnson, all those guys. I think Kansas State's been a little inconsistent this year. I think Oklahoma State, we really didn't know. I want to say we really don't know what they were because, they played some weird barn burners themselves before the Utah game. With that being said, with them being both so inconsistent, I really don't know what to expect from this game. I would say with the minus 4.5, if I had to bet this, which I am not touching this game today. I would probably take Oklahoma State in the points.
It's very easy. It's very easy for you to make that decision, especially with Kansas State coming off of the shellacking last week by BYU. In case you guys didn't know what that score was, it was about 38-9 last week against BYU.
Who told you not to pick that game?
Yeah, you did. You said it was a trap game, and I did not listen, but I picked it anyway because I have that type of faith in Avery Johnson. And I have the same faith in Avery Johnson coming off of his worst collegiate game he's ever had. I have confidence in him. He's had 2 interceptions last week, no touchdowns, still able to average 6.7 yards on the ground. I think after this week, a tough week at practice, I think that playing in front of your home fans, Kansas State knows how important this game is and how detrimental one more loss is. And I think Avery Johnson is going to show why he's the playmaker that I believe he is, and he's going to be the reason they win today. Over 150 passing yards, which doesn't seem like much, but when you add another 125 rushing yards to it, it's a nice day. So I think Avery Johnson is going to have a huge day on the ground, and I think they're going to take care of business. Oklahoma State has been very inconsistent, having to rely on comebacks late in games twice this season already. I don't think Oklahoma State is going to have it in them for a third time. I think Kansas State kind of takes care of business and rights the ship for the rest of the season.
Alex, my friend, I am on the same side of you this week. I like Kansas State as well here. Look, Alan Bowman has had very inconsistent quarterback play, but we knew that was going to be the case coming into the season. Told you guys that's why I wasn't high on him, high on Oklahoma State at all this year in terms of truly competing for that conference there. And the weird thing is that Ollie Gordon hasn't gotten a chance to really get it going at all yet this season. I think with that being the case, and really Alan Bowman's looking over his shoulder now. He got benched last week. This game doesn't go well. He probably knows Gundy's going to pull the plug on me again and roll with the backup. I think with this Kansas State team, they're full of guys that can break off explosive plays, whether it be Edwards or Avery Johnson can break it off in the rushing attack as well. I think this is a great week to have a bounce back. Going back home, getting things back on track. I like K-State to take care of business in this one. See it being like a 27-17 kind of ball game where K-State's really never in danger. And they really take care of business at home and get it done.
Today is the day I think Ollie goes off. I think you see real Ollie today. That's why I'm really kind of leaning towards Oklahoma State. Kansas State's had trouble with the run all year. I think Oklahoma State today is the day they can get him going, I think.
Man, Ollie Gordon hasn't had a good game since his DUI. All right, so honestly, I think coming back this year hurt his draft stock, and I think he should have gone pro last year because this season is absolutely destroying his stock.
I think he should have hit the portal like he originally said he was going to do, and then ultimately took his name out for whatever reason. Because I think if Ollie Gordon was running behind, there's plenty of schools that could use a running back right now. Alabama, I'm sure, would love to have Ollie Gordon back there next to Jalen Milroe, or Ole Miss lost the starting running back. I know they've been running the ball pretty well so far this season, but you throw Ollie Gordon next to Jackson Dart, I mean, that's fireworks. So I think you should hit the portal.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are we going to next, boys?
Let's go to kind of a sneaky game here. The number 15th ranked Louisville Cardinals at the 16th ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame got back on track last week. Riley Leonard had another kind of all-inclusive performance, throwing and running. Came out with a W. Louisville just continues to win. There's a lot of people think Louisville hasn't been tested whatsoever to play anybody, and they're going to go to Notre Dame and get killed. A lot of people at Notre Dame still think Notre Dame is fool's gold. I said that before anybody else. Interesting matchup.
Don't forget about me.
You with me. You're right. This is again. I started with the word intriguing. I think it's intriguing. I think it's a sneaky good matchup.
Sneaky good.
Weird game. If anybody really thinks they know what Louisville is, please speak up, because I don't.
Well, look, man, plain and simple, their quarterback is six-year senior Tyler Shugg, who started at Oregon, played at Texas Tech last year before getting benched, and then transferred for a third time. And like I said, it's his sixth year in college, and this is probably the first time he's actually put it all together. So that's why Louisville's looking as good as they are right now. No interceptions going into this game for Tyler. Like I said, that's honestly what Louisville is kind of resting on right now, is that they're not turning the ball over. They're getting consistent play on all fronts, offensively and defensively. But today's definitely going to be a test. I think, like I said, if Tyler Shugg can keep the ball in Louisville's hands, not cause any turnovers or force any bad throws like he's been prone to do in big games in the past, I see no reason why Louisville can't compete against this Notre Dame like one-dimensional team.
Bill, I'm no psychic here, but Tyler Shugg played at Oregon. He's old as hell, and he's playing against Notre Dame. I know for a fact that Alex is picking Louisville to beat Notre Dame today. For a absolute bona. He's 29 years old. He used to play at Oregon, and he's playing against Notre Dame. Oh, there's no chance Alex isn't picking Louisville to win this football game.
As soon as Alex starts anything with making a guy's connection to Oregon,
6th year Oregon, it's over.
You know exactly where he's going. You know, like
unless 6 years the ball, it's over.
If it's 7th year senior so and so went to an Oregon Ducks game when he was 7, you can stop listening to whatever he says after that, because that's who he's picking. That is who he's picking.
Damn, that's cold-blooded.
For me, though, I'm on the opposite side of I'm on the unofficial opposite side of Alex here. I'm rolling with Notre Dame. I like Notre Dame to ultimately get it done in this football game. I still think they're fool's gold. So, like, I would like to stay on that boat, but I also think that this Louisville team is unproven in my book. I think this is going to be Tyler Shugg's first true test with that Louisville team. And I think defense gets it done in this one. I think both teams are going to be very run-heavy in this one, but I trust Notre Dame's defense more than I trust Louisville's defense, especially on the road. If Riley Leonard just doesn't turn the ball over, as basic as that offense is, by just running the football, you got Jeremiah Love, who's great in the rushing attack, and then Riley Leonard obviously can make plays with his legs as well. If you could just control that time of possession there and make Louisville beat you with the deep ball and not and make Tyler uncomfortable and force him to make some throws downfield, I think you're going to be perfectly fine in this one. I think the spread was at 5.5 or 6.5, something like that. And I think
floated back and forth.
And I think Notre Dame ultimately does slightly cover that spread there. Again, I see this being like a 10-point ball game. It looks rather close, but I think at the end of the year, we're going to look at this like this is the game where obviously the NIU was clearly that, but I think we're going to look back like this is the game where Notre Dame picked up a ranked win and we started to value them in higher regard than we should have. But I ultimately don't think this Louisville team isn't the 15th best team in the country.
I agree with pretty much everything you said. I I think. Listen, if you watch college football and you watch college basketball, Notre Dame is the Duke of college basketball without the national championships. And I say what I mean when I say that is this. Like Charles just said, they lose to Northern Illinois and they dip in the polls. Duke could lose to like Garnet State in basketball, and then if their next two wins they could be against the Joe Schmoes of Division I basketball. If they win their next two games, they'll be back in the top 10. Notre Dame's the same way. I promise you this: if they beat Louisville tonight, just like Cottrell said, their huge following and all the people that vote for these polls, Notre Dame will be back in the top 10 Monday morning, and they shouldn't be. I think they're going to win the football game, just like Cottrell said. Give me a dominant defense at home. I will take that over the unproven defense. And I think they have shown up enough to garner that trust. I really don't know what Louisville is, and that's not a knock on them. It's just they're ranked 5th. Yeah, they're ranked 15th because they're a major program that's undefeated. They just really haven't played anybody yet. So it'll be gut check time for them. I agree it's a little bit of a lower scoring game. I think Notre Dame wins like 24-20. I think the game goes into the fourth quarter. I think it's, like I said, I think it's a sneaky good football game. I'll take Notre Dame's defense at home, backs against the wall. But I'm telling you, I'm so glad Cottrell said it. This will start the hype train back up on Notre Dame because this is what happens. Like, don't mind you, they lost to a MAC school with a bunch of like fifth-year seniors that came in and just knocked them out. Right. Yeah, because they went and lost to Buffalo at home. But like all the people that are Notre Dame lovers and stands gloss over that fact. It'll be we beat Louisville, put us back in the top 10. We should be in the college football playoff. This is where the rise starts back up before we inevitably get the crash that makes me a happy person every year. So we're gonna be on the way back up the mountain. Not our mountain, but we're gonna be way back up the hype mountain for Notre Dame after this week. I'm telling you, mark my words. I'm telling you. Like, go to ESPN's college football front page Saturday, Sunday morning tomorrow after they beat Louisville tonight and watch. I guarantee you it'll be one of the top 3 headlines. Oh, is Notre Dame back? Like, I guarantee you. I promise you it'll be there. And
Alex, tell us.
See, Bill, I think you're wrong. I think there are going to be headlines on ESPN tomorrow.
Are we actually doing official picks? We know he's picking Louisville.
No, but I'm like, there are going to be headlines on ESPN regarding Notre Dame tomorrow. And the headline is going to be, is Marcus Freeman's seat hot or hotter after this game?
Is hot.
Because guess what? Last week, Louisville beat a Georgia Tech team that obviously their biggest win this season is against Florida State. But one thing that Georgia Tech is great at is running the football, which this year so far Notre Dame has had the most success with. Obviously, Riley Leonard not as prolific of a passer as Notre Dame's offense would like to have. So they've been running the ball more. Riley Leonard had over 100 yards the last 2 games. But here's the thing: Georgia Tech is one of the most heavily run-oriented offenses in the country. And Louisville last week was able to hold them under 100 yards in a win and 2.6 yards per carry. I think that Louisville is going to be able to eliminate this rushing attack of Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to have to force some turnovers or Louisville's going to run away with this. Justin said it in the chat earlier, Notre Dame losing by 10, book it now. I thought he was crazy. I thought about it. You know what? I'm going to back Justin on this. I think Louisville wins by double digits. I don't think this game is going to be close at all. I think Riley Leonard's 1 touchdown pass and 2 interceptions is still going to be 1 touchdown pass, but with 4 interceptions at the end of the game. And I do think, like I said, that Louisville offense may or may not be all that's hyped up to be compared to previous years with Jawar Jordan and guys from last year. But I tell you what, this team is efficient, and I think that they're gonna take care of business against Notre Dame today.
I told you. We already knew that, though.
We knew it. I didn't think he was going double digits, though. I'll give him credit for that, for holding that in.
Thank you.
I will tell you this: if Louisville goes into Notre Dame and wins that game by double digits, yeah, Marcus Freeman better walk around with a fire extinguisher under his arm because the boy's teeth gonna be burning. All right, let's go out.
3 more.
Three more. Let's go out west here. I think some people think this would potentially be a trap game. Cottrell might even think that. I'm not sure. Utah at Arizona. Again, I think we're all assuming Cam plays today. The spread has not moved, and it's kind of a Cam Rising type spread if he is playing. I think Utah's defense has looked absolutely incredible. They looked dominant, won the road again last week. I know we give Alan Bowman and that, kind of a lot of crap on the show, and deservedly so, but Oklahoma State still has a very good offense. And they went into Stillwater, which is definitely not an easy place to play. It definitely gets rowdy there. And came out with a huge road victory, puts them up top. They control their own destiny in the Big 12 now. Arizona, not ranked. Like Cottrell said, kind of I don't know if we want to say disappointment, but I mean, I think maybe we should expect a little bit more out of them. We had higher hopes for them than other people did, maybe. We can't get everything right on this show. But
they lost to Kansas State. I mean, they're 2-1. They lost to Kansas State.
Yeah, but it was 31-7. That wasn't a loss to Kansas State. That was a ass whooping by Kansas State.
Kansas State also got their ass whooped by BYU. And
that is true.
Be high on Kansas State, the rest of the season.
You guys better stop overlooking BYU on this show. Goddammit! I told you just don't go into BYU and beat the Cougars like that. I tried to tell Alex. Now I'm telling you, nobody goes into BYU like that.
Nobody puts BYU in a corner.
Exactly. Listen, it came out of your mouth. I said you're going to lose that game. I said it immediately. I said you're going to lose that game. Not that I'm room talk. I think I have one win. So, is this a trap game? Is this a trap game, or is Utah just going to handle business?
This is a trap game. It's a trap game. Arizona is going to be all over this Utah team. I think this game is one where you see Utah have to fight from behind. I think this is a game where you might see Arizona up 10 in the fourth quarter, and Utah finds a way to still win the football game. I love Utah in this spot. I do think defense will travel. However, with that said, I think Arizona realizes that, hey, this is our season right here. And I'm not saying it to say that Utah just is kind of coasting through these kinds of games here, but you already got one loss in the conference if you're Arizona. You have to give this game literally all you have, because 2 losses, the way that the Big 12 is starting to shake out right now, it's going to be tough to rebound from, especially if, knowing that Utah beat you and also beat a good Oklahoma State team who would also be in contention there as well. So, not to mention other teams like BYU, Colorado still undefeated in the Big 12. Don't have high hopes for them, but UCF is also undefeated in the Big 12, Iowa State. So, I think this is a huge game for Arizona, and I think they show up to the party. However, I think Utah pulls this one out late, whether it be a walk-off field goal, walk-off touchdown. I like them to, essentially steal this game away from Arizona. The 9.5-point spread, I think, is absolutely crazy. Disrespectful to Arizona.
I am going to go the same outcome, not necessarily by thievery. I think 9.5 is a lot on the road, for a team, I think, with Arizona's, potential, especially with that offense. That being said, I still think Utah's defense travels because it always does. They're going to have the run game, Cam Rising back under center. I think Arizona's weakness is their defense. That's the problem. I think they probably play a little bit above their heads today, being at home. Because I think everybody will be, I think Arizona will show out fan-wise. I think it'll be a fun atmosphere down there today. But I like Utah. They might not cover the spread. I'm not picking the game, for the spread or betting or anything like that. But I don't think they go to Arizona and lose. I think that defense is too good. They control the ball too much on offense. They just kind of wear you down. It's a hard game. It's a hard style of play to play against. So I like Utah maybe 27-20, somewhere in there. Like I said, I agree with Cottrell. Probably don't cover. I don't think they just steal the game late though. I think they're winning in the fourth quarter.
So just a heads up, I made a little boo-boo, and the game is in Utah. So does that change?
What do you got to say now, Cottrell? No, I'm just kidding. Now I think Utah maybe covers. It's about the only thing changes for me.
I don't care where the game's at. Game can be played on the moon. I like Arizona to cover, and I still think Arizona's in the position to win the football game.
Look, honestly, like I hate agreeing with Cottrell, but I guess Arizona, like I said, they got their asses stomped by Kansas State 31-7 2 weeks ago, coming off of a bye. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this Utah team, and Arizona is not a stranger to the Utah team, both coming from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 together. They're really kind of rekindling this rivalry here. And like I said, with 2 weeks between the Arizona and Utah game, I think that's going to be enough for Arizona to right the ship. Noah Fafita is going to go off this game. I think the game is going to be close. I'm still on the fence about Cam Rising. Like I said, is he going to start? Will he not start? I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. But 2 weeks to prepare for this Utah team, I think it's going to have Arizona in the right headspace. Another thing about Utah's defense is they've had 12 sacks this year, one of the best in the country as far as team numbers. But Arizona has only given up 3 sacks all season long. They've been able to keep up Noah Fafita upright in the pocket, and I think that's going to be why Arizona is going to be able to kind of, like I said, cover the spread. And I think ultimately Arizona might even win this game on the road. Like I said, back in the Pac-12 days, these games are always highly contested. I don't expect it to be any different than that. It's a Big 12 game. I think Arizona covers that 9.5-point spread pretty easily.
And just to even piggyback off that, Alex, when these two teams met last year, granted, I know Cam Rising didn't play, and he wasn't their quarterback, and their backup quarterback wasn't the quarterback who's playing today. Potentially playing today. But Arizona routed this Utah team last year. They won by 24 points, I believe. So it was a blowout game. So I do think the familiarity definitely matters. And like you said, Arizona's coming off that bye as well. I just think Utah's a better team. So I have been pulling it out, but I'm 100% with you. I think Arizona will be game for this matchup.
All right, we will switch gears here. A lot of people think this is a trap game today. A lot of people, a lot of national people. Number 19 Illinois at number 9 Penn State.
Ooh, I'm excited.
I still think I'm excited, as in I kind of want to see what Penn State really is, because I think you're gonna have a better idea of that after this game tonight. That being said, CBS decided to take this game, which now makes this a primetime game, which means this is going to be a whiteout tonight. Penn State's going to get 2 whiteouts this year. I'm not going to get into the Penn State whiteout thing because they've been babying out of it the last couple of years with who they decide to pull it against. That being said, TV contracts are what they are. They're going to be a whiteout tonight. I wish Brett Bielema didn't come out in his press conference and say it's not that big a deal, because every player that's ever played there during one says it is a big deal. Illinois is a tough team, though. They're tough. They're scrappy. Trey Almeyer just put on a clinic last week at Nebraska. They went into, again, a very hostile environment in Nebraska and won a football game. So I don't think Illinois is overwhelmed by the whiteout. I don't. I think it plays a factor in the game, especially early in the game. Cottrell can obviously attest to it, as can I, being a Michigan fan. It affects teams. It does. You have to give Penn State credit. Illinois' got a pretty good defense. You saw that last week against Illinois. They tackle well. They're tough. They change looks. The spread is crazy. I'm not sure exactly what it's at right now as we sit, but
19.5. Illinois State is plus 19.5.
I think is nutty to me. I think Penn State wins. I think it's going to be a really good win for Penn State to have at the end of the year. 20 points is crazy for me with Illinois coming off the performance they just had. I will take Illinois to cover. I think Penn State wins the game, obviously. I like Illinois to cover, though. I think 19.5 is crazy.
Well, I'm going to just go, and I'll go quick here since we talked about this game on Wire to Wire here. I think that Vegas knows something that we don't. And I also think that this Penn State team will come out and dominate this football game. Now, when I say come out and dominate, I don't just mean like they're going to come out and cover that spread. I more so mean that this game will never be close, in my opinion. Outside, like after halftime, we're going to know that this game is 100% over. I think this is a game that has Penn State winning, by 14, 17 points written all over it. I do think 19.5 is a ton to cover, especially for a Penn State offense that hasn't looked great really all season. I mean, they can move the ball effectively down the field, but I don't know if I trust them to beat anybody right now by 19.5 points. So for me, I think Illinois' offense will have some success in this game. However, I do think Penn State will dominate this football game, and it's never really going to be a game. And I like Penn State to win by 2 or 3 possessions.
Look, man, Luke Altmaier and Illinois, they're rolling. They got 2 ranked wins on the season, Kansas and Nebraska, playing in a very hostile environment last week in Nebraska. Luke Altmaier absolutely went off, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, actually no interceptions on the season, being smart with the ball, not turning the ball over. And ultimately, I think that's kind of what's been able to make keep Illinois in games and make them look as good as they have. Now, I am picking this game, so I won't get too much into details, but nobody is obviously attached to the University of Oregon, so there's no giveaways here. But Penn State, like I said, coming off of an absolutely throttling of Kent State, it was at 56-0, and then like I said, West Virginia, They look good. Bowling Green, though, hey, I'm not talking crap about Kent State because you went there. It's just facts of the matter, man. I'm sorry.
Worst team in FBS, I know.
It happens. But again, then they played Bowling Green and won by 7 points in the game that they could have easily lost, 34-27. So with Penn State, I need to see some consistency in this game. And really, I haven't seen a true identity pop out for them against a tough opponent, which I believe we will see today against this Illinois team. But like I said, I am picking this game, so I'm not going to give away too much. But I think this is probably going to be probably the second best game of the day.
I do agree that I think it ends up being a really good football game. But let's get to the old main course here, the big one, the one we're all here for. Number 2 Georgia traveling to number 4 Alabama. I'm going to be quick here. I'm going to say the same thing that I said on Wednesday. My head tells me one thing, my gut tells me something else. I'm going to go with my gut. I think Georgia rebounds after that horrible Kentucky game. I think they go into Alabama. They play a lot better. I think the offense looks better. I think if there's one thing about Alabama we're not super sure about yet, it's their defense. I think they get tested today. I will say this. I don't know if it's a Nick Saban effect. I don't know if people are just not fully bought in on Kellen DeBoer yet, which I don't know why you wouldn't be. I have never seen the 4th-ranked team in this country 5 weeks into a season get disrespected more than Alabama has. I promise you if Nick Saban was still the head coach, this wouldn't be the case. Nobody talks about them. Nobody picks them for anything. You have a returning starter and a quarterback that was a game away from the national championship last year, lost in overtime to the eventual national champions. No one's talking about Alabama. It's all Ohio State. It's all Georgia. It's all Oregon. Maybe some sleeper team that we're not talking about. Nobody ever stands up and goes, Alabama's going to win the national championship. I think Jalen Milroe has been playing all year with a chip on his shoulder. I think it's kind of his redemption tour. I think Alabama pulls off the upset. I think Alabama beats Georgia at home tonight. That is my pick.
And I'll go quick here as well because, again, we covered this game as well on Wire to Wire. I got Alabama as well. I think Alabama is the better football team as we sit here today. I think Alabama has explosive players all across the board, whether it be Milroe, whether it be Ryan Williams, defensively Keon Sabb. They've got a ton of great players all over the field. And for Georgia, I think this game is ultimately going to come down to who's going to step up to make that big play for them. ETN needs to be that guy. They need to start to get more consistent in that rushing attack. But, Justin, this one is for you. Ladd McConkey's not walking through that door today. Brock Bowers isn't walking through the tunnel today. I think with the explosive plays from Alabama, I think they have enough weapons that I trust more to make those big time plays in a game like this. I think that's ultimately what's going to, take it off here. Last year in the SEC championship game with Alabama and Georgia, it was a Jalen Milroe run that ultimately proved to be the difference in the game. And I think you may see that today. It may be a 60-yard touchdown that Alabama has that ultimately breaks this game open. So I like this to be a tight game. I'll probably go 27-24, but I'm rolling with Alabama at home.
Hey, man, this is Georgia, Bama. This is exactly what we want to see. Number 2 team in the country, number 4 team in the country. Very experienced quarterbacks in Carson Beck and Jalen Milroe. Last week, I said I want to see Jalen Milroe unlock his legs a little bit before getting into the thick of the SEC play. We were able to see him rush for 79 yards last week, really making smart decisions. This is going to be an exciting game. What really is kind of pushing me towards the direction of Bama and the direction that you guys have both gone is the way Georgia looked last week against Kentucky. I know they went on the road against a tough SEC opponent in Kentucky who really played above and out of their heads to kind of compete with this Georgia team. But that's exactly what Alabama is going to come into this game with that mentality as well, because they also feel the disrespect. They see in the headlines that no one's picking Bama to win the championship, that they're still talking about Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, teams like that. And today is the day where Jalen Milroe stamps the invitation to the Heisman. I think today he's gonna have a Heisman type caliber moment, and I think that they're gonna take care of business. I'm not saying it's gonna be a blowout or any stretch of the imagination. I think both defenses are both allowing 10 points or less on the season, so I think this is gonna be a tough, hard hitting football game. I think the final score is closer to like 21-17, a lower scoring game. I do think that Bama is going to take care of business, and it's not going to be because of Kalen DeBoer or anything like that, but it's going to be because of Jalen Milroe taking care of business and keeping the ball in Bama's hands and controlling that clock.
All righty. So, that's three Bama picks. That's interesting.
So go put money on Georgia.
Exactly. Let's get to pick 'em. I am terrible.
Going so bad.
Well, at least I have a 50-point lead at Superdog. Christ, if you add us together, we're still not beating Control.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, this is
you guys got to get out. Alex, for you got to stop picking the games that mean something close to you. You got to get away from the chess.
Oh, I did today. Don't you worry. I did today.
Alex, I'm picking all the teams I hate.
I'm picking only underdogs today, y'all. Only underdogs.
All right. Well, 3-9. I'm embarrassed, as I should be. So here are the games that I'm going with. You could pick.
Oh, did we lose Bill?
Oh my God! I thought I froze. I was like, "Shit, I lost." It's me. I was like, "I lost."
No, he's back. He's back.
There he is.
I'm going to go with some of the games we already talked about. I'm going Fresno State plus 2.5 at UNLV. I watched them play up close and personal with Michigan without their starting quarterback. I think there's going to be growing pains there somewhere for UNLV. Give me Fresno State plus 2.5. One of the games we just talked about, Illinois plus 19.5. Don't think they go into Happy Valley and win. That being said, 19.5. They're just coming off a road win at Nebraska against Dylan Raiola. Alex hit on one of the big things for me. Penn State is just not been consistent. They look good for spurts, then they look terrible for spurts. I think Illinois can move the ball against that defense. I think they can stay in the game, not win. Almost 3 touchdowns is crazy to me, though. Give me Illinois there. I'm going with my gut on this one. They won for me last week. It's my one win from last week. I thought Colorado was going to win big last week, and they did. Going to UCF, I think UCF is definitely the better football team. Plus 14.5, I think, is a big number, though, for UCF to contain that Colorado offense all day long. So I will go Colorado plus 14.5 there against UCF. And then my super dog, talked about App State a little bit earlier. I watched this team go into App State and absolutely tear their heads off and kind of laugh at them. Went up and down the field. South Alabama, one of the highest scoring offenses in the country. Putting points up on everybody. LSU is celebrating victories against South Carolina down there right now. They've had a couple close calls this year. They already have a loss. I don't think this LSU team is very good. I don't think South Alabama goes into Death Valley and wins. But 21.5, I don't think they're 3 touchdowns better than this to South Alabama team. That offense scores too well, too efficiently. I will take South Alabama as my super dog this week.
And I'll go quick here because I got my games in on Wednesday as well. And I got two really square plays for you in the team that I've been high on all year. First game, probably the one and only time that I'll probably do this year. I like Ohio State minus 23.5 at Michigan State. Michigan State's not a good football team. They're not going to be able to move the ball on Ohio State's defense. And I think 23.5 points is probably going to be the best play for me actually this week. Second game I like. Going to the rival, I like Michigan minus 9.5 versus Minnesota. At home, this Minnesota against this Minnesota team. Minnesota last week lost by 17 to Iowa. They let Iowa score 31 points on them. This Michigan team is going to take care of business against Minnesota. And in the third game that I like Cincinnati plus 2.5 at Texas.
Fucking
Tech.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati's been playing great football so far, and they are one possession away from being an undefeated football team so far this season. They're 3-1. I think they continue to build that momentum, and they take care of business at Texas Tech, and they win that game outright. And then the last one, I'm agreeing with Bill here on this one. I got South Alabama plus 22.5 at LSU. They're averaging 48 points a game. That's top 10 in the entire country. Look, they're going to put up points in this one. They probably lose the football game. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that they beat this South Alabama team by 23 points or more. They're going to score way too much for that to be the case. So I like them to cover that and give me some super dog points.
All right, well, I'll be quick. You've heard all of my picks except for one of them from the previous two. So I'll do that one last. But no, Illinois going versus Penn State, 19.5. That's just too crazy. Illinois has been playing way too consistent and way too smart to lose by 21 points. Luke Altmaier, like I said, keeping hold of the ball. Illinois having steady drives, big win last week. I think that momentum is going to carry into this week versus Penn State. I got Fresno State 2.5 plus 2.5 versus UNLV. I think losing your second leading running back, as well as your QB, who is your leading rusher. I think that's a lot of offense that is leaving that you're going to have to kind of revamp over just like a 4-day window to kind of get your team prepped. I think Fresno State's, like I said, they've been very consistent all year, played well against Michigan, and they understand how big this game is and the chance they have to really win this game with the turmoil that UNLV is in. So Fresno State plus 2.5. The one pick you have not heard today, and that's going to be BYU versus Baylor. My darling of the season is Kansas State and Avery Johnson. Well, BYU made them look like a junior high football team last week. And this week, going up against Baylor, who lost a heartbreaker last week to Colorado on that last-second Hail Mary, ultimately losing in overtime. I do think that BYU covers that +3 and actually wins against Baylor today to continue their undefeated streak. So go BYU.
Now he's a BYU fan.
I'm just saying,
BYU fan.
This week, yeah.
You
helped me. All right, you helped me understand, Bill.
I told you, stop coming from the heart. The only reason why you picked this game is because they beat Kansas State last week.
And because I saw the way I'm picking this game because the way Baylor lost last week and the heartbreak that is.
Determine your picks.
Okay, well, I'm just saying BYU +3 over Baylor. If you have not noticed, all three picks are the underdogs. Fresno State, Illinois, BYU. For my super dog, you've already heard it today, which means bet the opposite. South Alabama versus LSU. The line is 20.5 right now, and I'm still picking South Alabama to cover versus LSU. That offense for South Alabama is absolutely disgusting. Dropping 87 points 2 weeks ago, 48 last week. Like I said, 2 wins in a row. LSU is allowing a lot of points to a lot of teams. South Carolina scored 33. Nicholls State scored 21. USC scored 27. I think South Alabama is going to have no problem moving the ball today, so +20.5 is a little bit steep. So South Alabama for the Superdog.
Justin, you're probably right. I would also just like the record to show I have such a dominating lead in the Superdog, and now they're just copying my picks. But that's fine.
I'm second in Superdog, bro. All right?
You're 50 behind. Don't make it sound like you're right behind me.
Whatever. I'm right there. Okay, I'm right there.
Me and Alex are tags.
I would say you guys having the same picks and both being 3-9. Like I would, I like UNLV.
Listen, I preempted my picks with saying, "Do not pick these picks."
BYU is an original pick. All right.
Yeah.
It's actually funny that I'm literally on the opposite side of you. Like when we did the breakdowns, I was on the opposite side of you guys then. Like I was like, I think Penn State can cover that game, and I like UNLV to win outright. So will be fun to see next week for sure.
All right, Eliminator Mountain, and then college football's kicking off, so we got to get going.
Yeah, let's get to Eliminator here.
This is the best Eliminator Mountain ever. Oh, yes.
Alex, so we Tombstone NIU, I guess.
Yeah, they were all of our darlings until one for 1
Not
week.
all of ours.
Oh my God. Well, they were the rest of the nation's darling for 1 week before getting absolutely embarrassed by Buffalo at home. So yeah, they after that loss, they don't have a chance to make the college football playoff any further.
Right,
so yes, they are.
Somebody take Buffalo plus 14.5 last week.
Guy just wins lucky picks. They just got to brag about. Wait, hold on. Time out. Though, hold on. Are we really tombstoning them though?
Oh, they're done.
They're done, dude. They're absolutely done.
Time out. You don't think?
No.
No.
Don't even finish your sentence. No, we don't need to.
I don't.
They run the table and win the MAC-12 championship game. You don't think they can get in at 12-1?
No.
As a group of 5?
No. Not compared to because like Fresno State lost to Michigan is a better loss. Like there's so many teams that will be with
their win at Notre Dame is going to be better than anybody else in the group of 5's win has.
You lose at home to Buffalo,
and they're losing today against NC State at NC State. So it's going to be 2 losses. It's irrelevant.
Bro, NC State stinks. So I can't write.
But so does Buffalo. So does Buffalo.
Hey, I try to tell you.
I'm saying, don't be surprised if NIU goes and NC State wins that game. Because
here's the thing:
NC State is trash.
Bill, if NIU wins, I will then add a zombie emoji, an arm coming out of the dirt.
NIU has risen.
Yes.
I
was just saying maybe we could just put them back at base camp and then before we buried them. That's all I was saying.
No, they're in the dirt. I'm with you, Alex.
I like Huskies. That's fine. I believe
K-State. Is K-State being flighted out, or are they flown
back? They're being life flighted out. They got their ass stomped by BYU.
Fair enough.
Like I said, but they're not on life support like Notre Dame is, though.
Notre Dame is fixing to be in that third tombstone if they lose this week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they lose later today. They will be. I would think they're the third tombstone.
Yeah, and then as you can see in the close-up there, Utah has Arizona's season is pretty much riding in the balance today. Going 2 losses in conference is not how you want to start. So like I said, if Utah wins today against Arizona, we can pretty much kick Arizona off the mountain as well.
All right, well, that's where we're at for now. Obviously, there's going to be some movement with Georgia and Alabama. Somebody's coming to step down there. Oklahoma State loses today. They might need to start digging too.
There's a hole already ready. There's a hole right there.
They might be on the ventilator right next to Notre Dame.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That's it. Ran a little bit late, but I mean, games are just kicking right now. So that is this week's show. I will be back home next week. I assume Cottrell will be as well.
Yes, sir.
We'll have a normal show next week, from 1 week anyway.
There you go.
Alex is always home because he can't be anywhere at 6 o'clock in the morning, his time. So,
Alex just a loser on the West Coast.
Wow, bro! I wish that you could feel the pain of ripping this eye black off. I'm wishing that you could feel this right now because it hurts so good.
That's how it's gonna feel when Ohio State beats Oregon in a couple weeks.
Getting close. What are we, 2 weeks out?
Yes, sir.
All I'm saying is this. Cottrell literally had the opportunity to come out to Oregon to watch that game and decided, I'm going to go to Bill's home state in Pennsylvania and get farther away from Oregon during that game just so that I can be consoled by your friend Bill over there instead of absolutely made fun of by me. And Justin.
You and Justin are going to be having a pity party, swimming in your own tears. Oregon in October.
That's gonna be a hype show that Saturday. I'm gonna have to have the bell be ringing to keep you two apart.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't care what the spread is. Know that's already bona fide one of my picks that week.
Already in. Ooh. I've already written it down.
Do we know what the look-ahead spread is for that game? It's got to be up.
I'll tell you right now.
Probably Ohio State minus 8.5.
I don't know if
it's I think it's a 1.5 point game right now. It is.
There's no way it's 8.5.
No, I was just talking shit. 2.
No, actually, Ohio State is the pick right now. 63% of people do think they're going to win, but there is no line yet.
You are incorrect, sir.
Oh, you found
Ohio,
it?
I'm
on ESPN.
I found it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you and Gene. Jesus Christ.
What? It's right there. Up. It's already up. Might as well check it.
Over under is at 56.5. Money line, Ohio State minus 125. Oregon plus 104. Spread, Ohio State minus 1.5.
Yep.
Sweet.
And that makes it too goddamn easy to take Ohio State.
And lose.
I don't know, bro. If I'm still 3-9 or whatever I'm at that point, I mean, that's if Ohio State's only got to cover
finally got to give me
2 points.
All I'm saying, Cottrell, is if Bill's record's still the same and he picks Ohio State, you might not want to be so happy.
I don't care because he's going to be on my side then. So then I know it's a winner.
I could make the same thing for you. If you're picking Oregon, that means I'm probably going to win. You have the same record as me. Stop acting like you're better than me.
Damn it, you're right. I was trying to sneak that one in there. That's right. BYU's going to win today. We're not going to be tied no more after today.
BYU's going to turn into the worst fucking football team of all time today.
BYU's up. Hey, check the score. BYU 7-0 against Baylor already. So,
I mean, hey, we saw the same thing with Marshall and Ohio State last week, and look how that turned out for you.
All right, at this point, we're just bullshitting. I love everybody for watching the show. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Let's get off of here so Bill can get a hangover cure and I can go cry.
Oh, I do. I need to eat something. I'm struggling. All right, boys, ladies and gents, Justin Louder, my guy as always. Thanks for being here all morning with us. Everybody else, we will be back next week. Take care. Signing off. Good luck to your teams this week.
Safe travels home, Bill.
Same to you as well. I mean, you're driving, I'm flying, but
I got to walk 15 feet.
All right, that works.
All right, see you, boys.
Later.